Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Chulin daf Gimel. We are going to begin on Gimel Amud Aleph, 6 lines from the top with the words Abaya Omer. So our Mishnah began, our Masechta began yesterday. Hakol Shoichtin, which we're saying is Lechat Chila, then V'Shechitasan is Ksheres B'Diavad, and we're trying to understand how do we understand this language. On one hand, it's al-chatchila, on one hand, it's b'diavad. So we mentioned one answer. There's going to be 5 answers. But we saw in yesterday's daf, someone who is tameh, who partook in, with doing shchita with Chulin, which is like the name of our Masechta, shenaso al taras hakodesh. But it has the same sanctity as kedusha, as hektish, and it's kadosh dami. So we say in that situation, if you use a long knife, so he's not going to cause any problems making it tameh, and therefore chatchil he can do it because it is at the end of the day just chulin. However, if it's actually hektish, then already that far we don't go. Okay, and with that we're going to continue and see another answer. Abaya omer chachin katanya kol shaychtin v'afil kuti. And as we've seen in numerous places, Kutim are interesting. Are they Geri Arayos? Are they Geri Emes? Why did they convert for the fear of lions or with truth? So Rashi says, when it comes to certain mitzvos, they embrace them, and some they don't. So when it comes to shchita, that's something that they do. So therefore, they could do the shchita. Rashi says, "Over Yisrael yotzev nichnas." It has to be, according to this shita, you have to be mamish oimid al gabov, as we're going to see right here in the Gemara. But medavar amurim k'sheisrael oimid al gabov. If b'diavad, if you just came back and forth, then chaytek chazayis bas, so you cut off a little bit of the food. But nice, they'll give it to him achol muter le'achol mishchitaso. So they're not really particular about you eating and you sinning. They're concerned about themselves. So therefore, if you give them meat to eat, if they refuse to eat it, then you know it's problematic. So, correct Rashi, what does that mean? That they're makbid not to eat nevela, but there's a pasuk of lifnei iver lositin mechshol. It says in Parshas Kedoshim, you're not to put a stumbling block, and that's referring to causing someone to sin. So Rashi says that's not how they interpret it. They just learn it kamash ma'oi. Shoyitin even b'derech iver l'hapiloi. Don't literally put a stumbling block literally in front of a blind person. They don't interpret it as we do, and that's one of the issues, of course, with the kutim, but that's something which they don't embrace. So, chutz mechershet v'katan, do you feel di'avad nami? Even b'di'avad, we don't ever want a chershet of katan or labnei deya to partake and do the shchita. Why? Nami lo. Why? Because shema yishu, as we said, same things. They may delay in the shchita. They may not do it in one shot. Shema yidrusu, they may press. Or shema yachlidu, maybe they will cause the knife to be burrowed through, and we'll understand there's actually 5 basic halachos of shchita, and these are the 3 that are mentioned. We'll dive a little deeper into the laws of shchita as we go through this parak. So the question is, when the Mishnah says, and all of them they shachted, what is that going? If it's someone a chershet of the katan, it should be a continuation from the Mishnah about the chershet of the katan. It says v'im shachtu, if they do it, because that's what we were talking about before. It doesn't say that. It says v'kuon sheshachtu, which is probably not going therefore in the chershet of the katan. Elakuti. So talking about a kusi. Aha amrit kishyaso omen al gabov shechel l'chvil l'chadchila. So kasha. Like, how do you read? The Mishnah doesn't read so well. Is that true that a kuti will not be trusted l'chadchila if you're going in and out? You're not oimed al gaba, but you're back and forth, and any second you could always pop in. But tanan, one who did leave b'di'eved an ovid kachavim in his store, Yisrael yotze v'nichnas mutter. It says it's mutter. So says Rashi, Omer Rava. Let's find this. Oh, Bahatanan. So the Masechtas of Zara, the Alpha Yisrael yotze v'nichnas, even he's coming back and forth, mutter. Alma mistafi ovid kachavim. An ovid kachavim is afraid. Dilma as Yisrael. Maybe he's going to come. V'naga, and he's not going to touch the food, the wine. So hachinami mistafi hashdasi v'chazile. He's concerned that he should be afraid. So apparently we should certainly say that by a kuti. Whereas a hasam migatani meniach hameniach etani di'avad. So again, I kind of messed up the kasha. The kasha is, it sounds like chachil. No, it's only b'di'avad. El mahacha. You don't have to mamish be standing there the whole time. So we see that's a l'chatchila then. That's why Rabbi flips it a little bit. He says hachiktani. Certainly if you're oim dal gabo, but even if you're into v'nichnas, it's l'chatchila because he's afraid he's not going to mess up. Let's say you weren't there. It turns out that he did shchita. So again, give him some food. If he eats it, then mutal echel b'shchitaso. The lo echel asal echel b'shchitaso. Chutz v'cheresh of the katan, they feel the ava nami lo because shemi yishu v'shemi yirusu v'shemi yachlidu. So we're going to ask the question the second, as we did before. So really, there's a very small variation. In fact, question 13, which asks us to list the 5 answers. The second one, it just says kuti kishachem roinoiso. And it says, oh, yoytze v'nichnas l'rava. So it's we're not going to call that 2 separate questions. So if you would write that down as 2 separate answers, you're not going to get full credit. That wouldn't count because it's just a variation of the same thing. So now again, the question is, what does that mean in our Mishnah? Could it possibly be going on that? Again, it should be saying a different language, which would imply that that's what it's talking about. That was stated before. Ravashi Omer, a third answer. Omer Hachi says like this: Katani Hakol Shachtan Vafi Yisrael Mummer. Even in Yisrael Mummer, a renegade Jew. Now Mummer Lamai. There's 2 different types of Mummer. One is Lahachas. He does things out of anger and just like out of spite. And then you have a Mummer with Teyavoin. And we'll discuss what that is in a second in Rashi. So Mummer Lamai. L'echol nevela satiyavoin. He's someone who eats nevela, non-kosher, because it tastes good. Okay, let's just turn the next page for a second. You can just check his knife, give it to him, then you can eat it. If he didn't check his knife, not. If he already did the shchita, then check his knife afterwards. Nimsa sakinu yafem motalecha mishchitaso. Himav asalecha mishchitaso. Okay. Chutz b'chershad v'katan defil diavad nami loi kashem yishu shem yirusu shem yachlidu. We're going to get to the question in a second. Look at this Rashi. What is a l'tiyavon? Kilo mishkach heter ochnevelos. So if there is delicious kosher meat right in front of him and delicious non-kosher meat of the same quality right next door, right near him, he's not going to forsake eating kosher and eat non-kosher. It's just out of convenience. He's someone who's not going to go 10 blocks out of his way to get kosher. But if it's readily accessible and available, he'll eat it. So he's not really lahachas. He's kind of like very impulsive in that way. So if let's say you have a knife which was checked, but nice to be able to give it to him, shachat shaper, he's going to shecht properly. He's not going to try to not shecht properly. But the kol kamad matzu mechel hatera lo chisura. You can eat mutter, is not going to eat iser. V'chi einul sakin bodok, if the knife's not checked, lo tarach la duri baser sakin yafe im zupaguma. So there could be nicks on the knife. He's not going to bother checking it because that takes time. He's not going to ask an expert. He's just lazy in that way. So he always tries to find the easiest way out. So this guy, if the knife was already checked, it's not a problem because he's not going to have done it on purpose. But if you didn't check the knife and you only checked afterwards, if there's something wrong with the knife, so we say you can't eat from it. Now, even though it's true, it may have only gotten a pagam only after the shechita, but we're not going to be saimech on that, and therefore we're not going to allow it. And when it comes to cheresh of the katan, we even with the evid we don't allow it because we know that they may not have done the shechita properly. Now, v'kulam sheshachtu ahe, ilam cheresh of the katan alakoi v'im shachtu meboile ela Yisrael mummer. You're talking about Yisrael mummer now. Either budak sakin v'noislo, if you already checked his knife before and you gave it to him the shecht, ha'amr shechel chadchila. El the lo budak, you didn't check it. Either isla sakin libdeke hashta. So if the knife is here, you can check it now. Either leisa sakin, when the knife is not here, kiachem roino so my havi. Who cares that other people saw? Dilma basakin peguma shachet kasha. So again, the language is a little bit troublesome. Answer number 4. Ravina Omer Hachi Kadani. Hakol Sheichdim, Hakol Mumchin, Sheichdim Mumchin. So it means that if you're a mumcha, what is a mumcha? An expert. It says Rashi v'yoidim hilchas shchita. So you're very book smart, right? You know all the laws. V'yavo b'shein muchzakin, but you don't have a chazaka. What's that? Says Rashi shel shachtu l'fanenu gimel pamim. You haven't shechted. You don't have a reputation for being sheichet. Your actual practical applications of doing the things were not done yet. Liros im yesh behem koyach she'enan misalfin b'shchita. One of the biggest concerns of a chazaka is we can see that you're not going to faint, because some people can't stand the sight of blood, and to kill an animal is not so simple for a person to do. Shiavle de shehia o ein yoidin. You may not know exactly how to hold your hands to not violate anything because you just never did it practically. You need more shimush. You need more work doing that. If they tested him, right, we completely see that he's an expert, and we recognize that he's an expert in all these laws, then we allow it to be done. If we don't know that he knows hilchos shchita, lo yishchad, we don't let him to do it. So if he does it, but we'll test him. If he knows the laws, then okay. So this is the 4th answer. I'm going to say the 5th one is just inverted. So this is a case you're an expert, but you don't have the experience. You have the education, but not the experience. Then we go back to our 4th question again. How can it be going on that? It's obviously not talking about that because it doesn't fit into the language of the Mishnah. Ella, it must be talking about in mumchin. So this person who is an expert or is not an expert. So you just test him out. So maybe he's just not around here to test him. Okay. Some say that Ravino Eimer Hachi Katani. Hakol Sheichtin Hakol Muchzokim Sheshachtim Muchzokim. So it's actually the opposite. This person actually has the experience, but we don't know if he has the educational background. Says Rashi, we don't know if he knows anything. Right? He just knows how to. He has some work experience in this field, but we don't know if he has Kabbalah on this. So, if we see that he's done this a few times, he never passed out, never fainted, so that's a good sign. If he didn't do it in front of us, Shem Yisalaf, he may not be able to do it properly. I can promise you I'm not going to pass out. And for the fifth and final time, hey, what's that going on? We're talking about this guy. We don't know if he's an expert in this stuff. He's an expert. He'll just say that I know it. So the lace come on to his shyly. He's not around to ask. Ravina of Rabba Barula Kebat Kebai of Rabba Ravashi Amri Yishum the Kashu Chulin. Right? It was this difficult of the Chulin. How does it fit into the Mishnah? So all these other answers are difficult. Kul Karabba Bar Ulu Amri. So Rabba. So we had today we heard Abaye, we heard Ravashi, we heard Ravina. Okay, so let's get this again. Kul Karabba Bar Ulu Amri Lahachlish Nadi Amrit Hacha Iker Adrav Hasam Iker to be Kachim Koi. Right. So we asked the Kasha that maybe we're talking about Chulin Shinasu Al Tarsa Kaidish, but the question is it's already mentioned. Lahachlish the Amrit Hasam Iker B'Hacha Aidi the Tana Tami B'Chulin Tana Nami Tami Mukdashim. So Tami B'Chulin Guful Itzrichle. Chulin Shinasu Al Tarsa Kaidish Lav Kakadosh Dami. It's actually Malchokas in the third parak of Chagiga. So maybe it's Lav Kakadosh Dami. Anyway, so the question was, how could that be like our Mishnah? This first answer. Okay, Kul Karavina Lo Amri. Now everyone holds like Ravina, which is this last answer of either you're mumche but not a muchsak, or you're muchsak and not a mumche. Lahachlish then the armor mumchin in shein mumchin loy. You have to only if you're an expert. So rov mitzuin itzel shchita mumchin hein. Like, what are you doing shechting? Like, I've never shechted an animal in my life, right? So if you would see someone that does shchita, you can probably assume he knows what he's talking about, at least the roy. Lahachish the yerma muchzakin in she'en muchzakin lo lalufi loichashinan. We're not afraid. Again, a person's going to pass out. Rabba loimer kabaye kikusha. Abaye loimer karaba hasam lo naga hacha naga. Right? So over there he didn't touch, but the kuti he touched. Ravashi loimer kurbayu savar kusim gerarayas. As we said, it's machlokas, and therefore if it's gerarayas, then you definitely don't trust him. Look at Rashi before. Hasam lo naga. Ahu avikachavim. B'yayin, b'shashu parish menu, he didn't touch the wine. Hacha behemazu biyad hakuti, the animals in the hands of the kuti. Nasuna keheref ayin shoya oidaris. In one split second, he could do something wrong. Hilka chlosam china niyetzav nichnas. Maybe by the wine it's okay because he's not touching it. But when it comes to this behemoth, he's mamish right here. He's being matapel with this animal, could be more problematic. And again, according to the Machokas of Kutim or Gerarayas, then we're not going to trust them. Abaye lo emikar Ravashi lo svirule hada Rava. Elo Rava maitam lo emikar Rava lo amar kishmaise. Lo devar debaye ka amar v'le lo svirule. Okay, we're going to stop there. So basically, the question is why are all these answers popping up? So again, Lamaskana, question 13. The 5 answers are Tami B'chul Shanasu Atarsa Kaidish, and maybe not everyone holds Kikadosh Dami. Kuti Keshem Roinoi, so Yoitzav Nichnas, or according to Rabba, or it's you have to be Oimid B'fandam. The question is Kuti Gerarayas, then it doesn't apply. Murmul Nevelis Leteyavain. A Mumcha Shena Muchsak Shena Mumcha. So do we say by Roiv Eitzel Shchita Mumchen Hain, or do we say that we're not concerned of Shematis Aleph? TA 1. Murmur Oichel Nevelis L'Teyavain Matai Sheichel L'Chatchila Matai Shchita Sakshera B'Diavad L'Rava. So this is Murmur Oichel Nevelis. What did I write over here? This is TA1. So the answer is Im Badak Sakin V'Nasan Loi. If you check this knife, it's Moto Chatchil. But you have an Im Badak L'Achar B'Shchita V'Nimsa Sakin Yafe, then it's okay. Let's see, I have the same answer. L'Fichad Loshen Im Loindin. Im oimdin al gabo shechach achilo afil yotze v'nichnas gam kan l'chachilo yotze v'nichnas rak b'diavad v'gam b'diavad. Okay, I think I wrote a lot more than I had to there, but okay, that's TA1. TB 4. Momarachol nevelos l'teyavo matei shechach achilo. Same question. Let's just mark this down. TB4. Let's find this. TB4. Let's see what I wrote. Im boide kasakim v'noisen lo as mutar l'ravo avol im lav el boide kasakin achar shchita v'ein shom pegimois oz a shchita kshera b'diavad. Beautiful answer. Adkan.